Hello and welcome to Lightup UG, platform for parenting, where we build on the community of parenting and we bring thoughts that hopefully we can put into practice. We can interrogate, or some of these thoughts are meant to really provoke your thinking, and so that you can take these thoughts and kind of spar them with your peer parents and see what happens. What kind of thoughts do they have? And I think that's where most of the deeper learning comes from. It's not about Herbert's thought, what I'm saying, but it's about you taking that thought, interrogating it, bringing it within your line of thinking, and then having a conversation with other peer parents, and then taking this to the next level, which is try out things and then see what happens. Okay, so I would really encourage you to do that. And the other thing is, would encourage you to ask questions. It's not like we know everything. Some of the thoughts you might have, we don't have. So would encourage you really, bring your thought to us, share it with us. You can always bring it to this platform. And if it's a question, then would endeavor to answer it. If it's not, and it's just a question, then would come back to you. You can always call us on 0776 243330. If you have like camps, or if you have a function where you feel we can give in a word or two, or we can talk to peer parents in an organized community of learning, a parental circle of learning, please call us on the same number, 0776 243330. We'll be happy to have a conversation with you, and then we can come out and meet your friends, your peers, and then see where we go. There's always this thought that we have that matches when we have children, and we are taking them to school, and then we're also raising them. What are those so many things that we can give them? And of course, there are a myriad of skills that we can pass on to our children. But some of these we really need to do from the onset. And then we can encourage these skills to grow, okay? It's not like every skill that you can pass it on once and it's done. Take, for example, if a young person has to learn to ride a bike, they'll do that for some time, but then once they get it, then you don't have to do that anymore. If your teenage son or daughter is turning 18 and they want to go for car driving lessons, they're just going to go there for a month, and then it's done. They do their tests, and then it's done. Then they're driving, and that's it. But there's some of those skills that need to be grown. With all the time that you spend with your child, you have an opportunity to grow some of these skills. And some of these skills are really, really essential and vital. Vital in the sense that they can serve them as they grow. They can serve them as they thrive within their peer groups and social networks. They can serve them as they become young adults to begin to speak for themselves, to stand and represent themselves. And then the same skills can really be honed in to support them and really become a centerpiece within their skill set of what gives them employment in the future. And one of those skills, which is very, very key, is communication. Communication is a skill that some people will look at and take for granted that, yeah, it's there, I'm speaking, I'm talking to people. But we can all talk, and we all can utter sentences and say words and like. Now, when we talk about a person who is proficient in communication, who is really good in communication, then we are really taking it to another level. Then you're really talking about a person who can hold thoughts, who can think about what they're going to say before they say it, who can think, how do I deliver this and get the same effect? Let me give you an example. When stand-up comedians are doing their routine, or when someone who is taking drama classes, they're on the stage and they're acting, they're communicating and they're talking. But you see, when a comedian is going for a punchline, it's because they've thought of how they're going to build up a moment and say something which they know is going to provoke a certain reaction in the audience. It's going to make them laugh. It's going to make them react. It's going to do this. But the other side can be the other extreme. Now, say the opposite can be true. You can say something, and that same said something can provoke a reaction that you did not intend. Say, for example, You go out and you want to talk to people, and your intention is, I want them to be convinced about this project, and I want them to support this project, and I want them to politically support it and give it the goodwill and understand or even accept the project. But what if you went and communicated to the community or the decision makers and the opposite was true? They reject the project, they are offended, they don't want to hear from you anymore. Actually, they outright reject you. It means you might have had a good idea, but you sold it the wrong way, you communicated it the wrong way, or it also means whatever you're communicating, they don't want to hear. Yet, you are so convinced that that's what I should tell them and it's going to be okay. So you see the contradictions in that. So when we start talking about how do we skill our children to be good communicators, we are asking ourselves, how can I teach my daughter or my son that if they have to talk about something to their peers, they, number one, have to use the appropriate language that the other people relate to. Number two, if they're going to bring the same talk to me or the parent, so to say, they are going to package it a different way. If they're going to talk to people who are in a church setting, they might think about what is that Bible verse that might help me to lay a foundation before I say what I want to say. That is where it goes. That's the level we are talking about. So when you hear people, and I know I digress a little bit, but it's important. When you hear people communicate on radio, DJs, presenters, on TV, in the newspapers and the like, all these people do things deliberately and they package them a certain way because they think of who they are communicating to in the first place. So they think of what kind of message that resonates with you, what you're listening to, and they'll think about the target, the age group, where your setting is, what your understanding is of the issue. And if it's necessary to give you a background so that they can bring you into the fold, then they'll do exactly that. Now, you might think, how does all this relate to my child? Oh yes, it does. Young people are supposed to build among the skill sets that they need communication as a key aspect. And it's very important because at the end of the day, some of the indirect benefits that they get from this, if you find a child who can really communicate well, who communicates effectively, then there are higher chances that that's a confident child. That's a confident young person. Because one of the prerequisites of good communication is, if you really want to be a good communicator, prepare. Think about what you're going to say. And think about those exact points that you have to deliver. Think about the time within which you have to say it and set the right frame and conditions where you're going to pass on your message. So for a young person to learn to communicate effectively, in effect you're training them to be confident people. In effect you're training them to think about the audience. In effect you're training them to be salespeople and marketeers. And where in life do you feel that these skills or these values don't apply? Where in our day-to-day living, in our professional, private, religious, any sort of specific society, where you think a person shouldn't be confident, a person shouldn't be good at communication, a person shouldn't be a good salesperson or a marketeer. Okay? And when we talk about these skills being kind of passed on as young people are growing, it's really important. I'll give you an example. If you come across young people, and I do this all the time, I meet young people and we're talking, and then you realize that you have young people who are about to go to university or young people who are almost coming out of the university, and you ask them this simple question. And this is the question as a parent I would encourage you to ask your child as a starting point. You tell a young person, please come in front. Stand in front of us. And then you tell them, we want you to use 2 minutes to tell us, no, 2 minutes is even torture. Just say, take a minute or less to tell us a thing or two about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. In other words, you're telling them, market yourself to us. Who are you? Ask that question. And then you begin to see how the child reacts, how this young person has now to think on their feet. What kind of words are they going to use? What kind of sentences are they going to utter? Some of them at that exact point, the question pops into their mind that actually they're right. Who am I? I don't even know how to sell myself. And this is exactly the point. Now, when we were growing up as young people in our families, there would be always these day-to-day rituals that we would see. Visitors come at home, and you're asked to come and talk to them, greet them, engage them, entertain the visitors. Now, when we were growing up, these are some of the things that we really hated. Personally, I always hated entertaining because you'd know I have to be there all the time. I have to keep talking. Sometimes I run out of words to say. I don't even know to entertain these people because some of them are strangers to me. I've never seen them even though they are relatives and they've come to visit home. And remember, these people are going to stay for a week or sometimes a month. That's back then. Nowadays, if a person comes to a home to stay for a month, you're asking yourself, don't these people have a life? You know, that's that's our society today. But anyway, the point here is, the more we did this to greet, interact, talk to people, engage people, entertain people, it taught us how to relate to people. It taught us a thing or two of how to speak to people. And then from there, questions would always respond, and our confidence was building up. And no wonder later on, if we are asked to do public speaking, if we are asked to engage people, it's not so hard. Yes, it is natural for some people, but for most, it's something that gives them a lot of pressure, creates a lot of pressure. So what do I suggest? I suggest get your child into the idea of always talking, communicating, and use these tips like let them think about what they are going to say. Let them use a specific amount of given time. Let them talk about different topics. It will also encourage them to go and do some simple reading, some simple research, some simple discovery. And so that when they come, they can talk from an informed point of view, even if they might not be the experts. Okay? And I promise you, some of these skills that we can nurture as our young people are growing up can pay off later. That sometimes is the simple difference between someone who leads and someone who simply follows. So I hope this is a good thought for you, and I've given you the tips. You can really try it out, see the reactions, then get into the rhythm of helping the child, helping the young people, and you'll see the changes within no time. And that should be the goal. That should be really the aim. Thanks for watching. See you next time.